Let's be honest. The religious, they spend all of their time making themselves look really, really dumb. Now, they don't recognize it, but everybody else sure does. When you're done here, make sure you run over to the original video and just read through the comments. Absolutely nobody thinks this guy has a lick of sense in his head. And that's probably because he doesn't. We're going to revisit atheism versus logic one last time, just to give him another chance, because the last video we took a look at was a complete and utter joke. And sorry, but I really don't think this one's going to be any better. The religious, they've got mental problems, like it or not. There might not be anything demonstrably wrong with their brains, although, sometimes you never know, but there is certainly something wrong with their capacity to rationally and skeptically evaluate the real world. They just don't give a damn, and this is going to prove that once again. So, off we go into La La Land. Grab your straitjackets on the way down. You just might need them by the time we're done.
So this is how I recommend ending a debate with an atheist, with this one sentence. And that one sentence is, if this won't change your mind, then I don't think anything else will.
Now, I'm going to be pretty honest here. We did another one of his videos a little while back, and it was one of the most ridiculous things I think I've ever seen. It was just painfully stupid, and I think if you've seen it, you're going to agree. Certainly everyone who comments on his videos does, because they keep calling this lunatic out on his nonsense, and all he can do is ask, well, did you see this video? Yeah, we've seen your videos. That's kind of the problem. They're dumb. You're a moron. Yet this guy is a legend in his own mind, but that's about the only place that he's respected. So now, having completely failed to convince anyone through his videos, he's now trying to run away and hide. Where have we ever seen this kind of thing before?
So for an example, if we're talking about just the evidence for a general creator, you could remind them of the video you might have already showed them of biological molecular machines.
And that was completely trounced too. This is what happens when you make videos about subjects that you have absolutely no goddamn idea about. It's not just this guy either. It's most apologists, but as I keep saying, the incestuous nature of apologetics makes them all look like completely incompetent boobs. Mostly because they are. This is where faith really leads them astray. They all just believe that their beliefs are true. No evidence or anything. They've never asked any difficult questions, and certainly they've never engaged in any kind of independent research. They've never actually learned anything. They just believe it because they want to believe it. So when somebody else says something that he's predisposed to believe in, based on his faith and wishful thinking, he just takes it and runs with it because, of course he does. It's just gotta be true. Except the idiot that he got it from, they also didn't do any independent research to verify the claims were true either. In fact, they probably got it from somebody else who, likewise, never actually tested the idea they spouted. This is an endless cycle of dumb from one religious idiot to the next, to the next, to the next, and none of them actually care if it's true. This is why these people make such fools of themselves. But let's let this fool keep on going. Maybe it'll be entertaining at least.
And say, if that doesn't change your mind, then I don't think anything else will.
That's because it's stupid. If you had a decent video filled with demonstrable facts, things that you could prove, hell, things that you actually understood before you recorded it, then that might actually change my mind. I'm sorry, but if that's the best that you can do, give it up. It's not my failure, it's yours. You're the one making a complete fool of yourself on YouTube, and you're the one earning every bit of derision that you receive. It's your fault. Knock it off.
Or if it's about admitting that DNA and mRNA are code, then you could just say, hey, if you study GMOs and you study the mRNA vaccines and how they work, and you don't come to the conclusion that DNA and mRNA are codes, then I don't think anything else will.
Because you're wrong. You just are. But you heard it from William Lane Craig or Frank Turek or any number of other religious morons say it was a code, and you just believed it blindly because you're an idiot. Maybe that's something you ought to talk to actual biologists and geneticists about, and I think we all know you've never done that. Of course, that's not just because they'd laugh at you, although they would. You're just repeating the same old tired religious bullshit and expecting it to get better results just because you're stupid enough to buy into it yourself. Again, this just makes you look dumb. Knock it off.
Now, of course, you got to make sure your evidence is good. Don't say something stupid like, well, if seeing Jesus in your toast doesn't convince you, then nothing else will. That's ridiculous, right?
Yet, you're not doing that, are you? Where exactly did you get your advanced biological degree? Because I don't think you even graduated from high school. And that's another problem that these people seem to have. They don't know nothing. They seem to think that if it sounds good to me, then it's just gotta be true. But that's not how reality works. Your so-called common sense isn't at all common among the religious because you don't actually understand anything. You've reached a conclusion for entirely emotional reasons, and therefore anything that fits into that paradigm, well, you're just going to run with it because reality is just too scary to you to do anything else. Maybe, just hear me out here, but maybe, this is just helpful advice, but maybe you need to grow the hell up.
So make sure you have good, solid evidence. Make sure that, and that's the great thing about atheists is that they're refining us, right? They're helping us not fall for stupid things. And of course, we agree with atheists.
Then help me out here. Why do you keep falling for such stupid things? This is one of those places that it's really hard to tell the difference between a legitimate religious person, if such a thing exists, and a Poe. Because the religious people are saying things so stupid that only a Poe should bother. This is why there's such a strong negative correlation between advanced education and religiosity. The smarter that you get, the less you tend to take any of this religious crap seriously.
On most religions, that most religions are ridiculous.
All religions are ridiculous. Every single one. Just because you happen to be emotionally attached to yours, that doesn't make it true. This is yet another problem that these people tend to have. They don't give a crap about the real world. If their religions were true, they wouldn't have to rely on such stupid arguments and easily disprovable claims. Evidence for it ought to be everywhere, yet it's not. They're just pushing religiously comforting interpretations into things and pretending that somehow that makes it reasonable. It's too bad they're all completely wrong.
And you might even be a Christian, but you've got a wrong view of Christianity. You might believe that you have to work for your salvation. So I agree. I recommend you read Galatians. But anyway, atheists are helpful, but a lot of times they're not going to admit the truth. They're not going to admit they have a creator until they see the creator. So you don't need to spend wasteful time giving them evidence when you've already given them enough evidence.
Says who? You are not providing any evidence whatsoever. You're just running around proving to the world what an ignorant idiot you are, and then when we point out just how little you actually know, you're throwing a temper tantrum, picking up your toys, and trying to run home. I mean, this is the religious folks, all of them. Now, sure, not all of them are this obviously idiotic. I mean, he's clearly making it his mission in life to invalidate himself and his beliefs and make himself look really dumb. But this is really how religion operates. This is the very epitome of the Dunning-Kruger effect. He thinks he knows what the hell he's doing. Sad, huh?
So remind them of the evidence that you've given them. That is enough.
No, you don't get to make that call. We do. We decide when we've seen sufficient evidence to be convinced of its efficacy. And guess what? You are not even remotely close. It's not like they can say, well, it was enough to convince me, because none of these people are ever convinced by their own arguments. It's always a matter of faith. Well, faith doesn't mean anything, does it? I am never going to have faith in Bigfoot. If you want to convince me that Bigfoot is real, you're going to have to show me demonstrable evidence. Verifiable evidence. You have to do better than, well, hey, that kind of looks like a footprint if you squint real hard. Because that's not evidence. Throw a body up on the table. Bring us testable DNA. Nothing less will do. And the same kind of thing goes for a God. Any God. Prove that God actually exists in some way that we can objectively test. If you can't, then it's your failure, not ours. Faith has nothing at all to do with rational inquiry. Get the hell over yourself.
Make sure it's good and solid, and then tell them if that won't change your mind, then I don't think anything else will, and then just let them be. I think that's a great way to exit the debate, to give them something to think about, to help them see that it might be stubbornness on their part, and and just let them be, and you're not wasting your time.
But you're wasting ours. You're wasting the time of everyone in your comment section that is pointing out what a complete imbecile you are. This is why this video, at the time this is being made, has 6 upvotes and 28 downvotes. You're just making a fool of yourself. By the time this video comes out, in a couple of months, it might be even higher than that. I don't know. For a channel called Atheism versus Logic, he clearly doesn't understand logic, which is true of virtually all theists, at least when it comes to talking about religion. And I'm pretty sure he doesn't even know what the hell atheism is. What he's doing here is making an excuse for his own failures. It's the same thing that Greg Kukul and the merry band of idiots over at STR do. Well, of course you're gonna fail. The reason you're failing is because you have nothing intelligent to say. You're just expecting people to have the same kind of empty-headed emotional reaction that you do. We're just not doing that. And you shouldn't either, but you at least have the excuse that you're dumb. Then he tries to sell his book again, and we're going to skip it. You know, that book that is doing absolutely nothing on Amazon because it's complete crap. So we're skipping over all the mindless self-promotion. You notice how many theists are doing this though, right? How many books, talks, anything for a buck that these people are pushing so they can get gullible people to give them the handout. This is just a giant con. Of course, religion has been a con since day one. Well, I heard a voice in my head that said you're supposed to give me all your stuff, so you'd better do that or the voice is gonna get you. Well, who the hell falls for that? Yeah, dumb people, that's who. This is why these people have so many problems. They get to a point where they just refuse to go any farther. Not because they can't, not because they shouldn't, but because they don't want to. As I'm writing this, right now, I'm having a debate with a theist who says that absolutely nobody can ever convince him that he's wrong. Yeah, that's probably because he just doesn't care if he's right. He's saying, your beliefs can't be proven. No, they have to be proven. If they're not proven, then you have no business believing in them in the first place. This is what is wrong with these people. They just don't care. That's the problem with religion across the board. They don't question anything to which they are emotionally attached. No, in reality, you need to question everything. Every damn thing that you encounter, especially the things that you are attached to for non-rational reasons, that has to be constantly questioned. You have to constantly reevaluate the evidence that you receive to make sure that any of this stuff stands up. Otherwise, you end up believing complete and utter bullshit. You have to doubt because it's only through skepticism that you find out if you're actually wrong. But of course, they don't want to do that, do they? They'd rather make excuses for why it's not their fault that you don't buy into their blind faith. No, It is their fault. They have no evidence to support it, and without evidence, nobody ought to believe. It's kind of pathetic, right? So I wanted to end this off with a little bit of helpful advice for people like this guy, because they definitely need it, because they don't seem to understand what the purpose of a debate actually is. It's not trying to convince the other guy that you're right. That's not it at all. It is trying to come to the truth. And you might find, after debating back and forth, after going after points after points after points, you might find out that neither of you are right. You're both wrong, and there's some other things that you need to consider. That's always a possibility. So, if you're in a debate just to say, well, of course I'm right, aren't you impressed with my brilliance? You're doing it wrong. You just are. And this guy is doing all of it wrong. And unfortunately, a lot of theists that I've seen, they're also doing it wrong, because they're not concerned about the truth. They're only concerned to running back to their emotionally comforting conclusion. And that's not how this works. And if you think that's how this works, you're wrong. Just like this jerk. So take that as you will. Hope you learned something. Hope you actually give a crap if you're right. And maybe think about it some more. Because the way that most theists are going about this is never going to get them anywhere useful. It's just going to make people laugh at you. Just like everyone is with this doofus. And trust me, you don't want to be anything like him.